Hi, I'm Betsy Martin, and I'm a member of the Video Club of Laguna Woods. Our club is 25 years old. We're about half the age of our village, and with over 100 members. We love people to come and visit us. We're between Clubhouse 2 and the pool. Any level of skill is welcome, and there are no dumb questions. There's nothing that, if you don't know it, don't be afraid to come in. Somebody will always be there to help you. We're open from 1 to 4, Tuesdays through Fridays, and we love to help people. We love to see people happy using our equipment and learning. We want you to use the equipment and become proficient at it and feel good about yourself about it. We have 3 tracks. We have general video, which is any level of skill. We have classes that teach video editing, how to shoot video. We use a book called How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. That's the actual name of the book. We have monthly meetings. We have special interest groups, monthly project day. That's become a lot of fun. People have their projects that they've finished or they're in the process of making, and they get feedback and constructive suggestions. Another track is our studio. It's a professional studio with lights, sound, backdrops. People have used it to do biographies of people. We've done our Remarkable Lives series there. We've done hundreds of videos on veterans, which is part of the Library of Congress project. And all of those videos are now cataloged with the Library of Congress. We use it for TV productions, and again, it's people who are skilled in cameras, professional cameras and lighting. Those are the kinds of people who have used it, and you can get instruction. Another track, our third track, we call our legacy track, and we provide the equipment for you to take your slides, your VHS tapes, and convert them to DVDs, CDs, make them into a digital format so they will last for a long time. And your grandkids and all the other kids in your family will appreciate it because they'll know how to use it. What are they going to do with paper and slides? They want to do it on their modern equipment. So we encourage you all to come to our lab, and our classes are on Mondays in the morning. We're open Tuesday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. Our general meetings are the third Thursday of the month, 6:30 for refreshments, 7 o'clock for the program. Please find us on our website, the Video Club, and join us. Have fun. You'll learn. You'll meet friends, have fun. And I guarantee it. And I'm Betsy Martin of the Video Club. Welcome to Remarkable Lives. I'm Betsy Martin, and this is a production of the Video Club, Laguna Woods, California. Today is October 5th, 2010. It is my great pleasure and honor to have with us today Julia Ross. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Betsy.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
You have lived a remarkable life, and I'd like to ask you some questions. For example, what are your lifelong interests? What have you been passionate about all your life?
Well, my family comes first. I just couldn't have survived this life without my family. My sisters, my brothers, my parents. It's been wonderful to have my family. And the second thing is dance. I've always loved dance. I find it transforming. And then the ocean. I was brought up near the ocean, and I find it relaxing and a joy just to watch the waves and listen to the roar of the waves breaking.
You still go down to Laguna Beach to rejuvenate yourself, don't you?
I definitely go. I try to go at least once a week, even if I go myself. And then I talk to people and I walk around and go to the art galleries. And
Nice. Who influenced you the most in your life, do you think?
I think it was my paternal grandmother. She was a very independent woman and really a feminist when, even as a younger woman in Russia. And she was a revolutionary. She felt that the Tsar should be overthrown. And then when she came to this country, she started to lecture on the need for collectivization and the importance of the working class and so on. So anyway, she inspired me. She was really kind of a rebel. I'm not really such a rebel, but a little bit.
You may not call yourself a rebel, but you've been very influential in making changes in our society, and I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you. I feel kind of overwhelmed.
Your father, your father also had that same rebel spirit as his mother, didn't he?
Yes, he was a union organizer when he was a plumber. He then became a builder, but he always was interested in the working class, and then he got very interested in peace. When he was older, he went around the world on a peace project, trying to bring a peace film to the world, and he thought if everyone saw a peace film that was made by the great thinkers of the world, there would be peace on earth. And then he began to show with a movie projector various peace films in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, where he lived.
And now he started a school, didn't he?
No, he didn't start a school. He was very active in the Jewish community. He was on the board of the Reseda Home for the Aged, and he built a playground for the Santa Monica Bay City's Jewish Community Center. And in Santa Monica, he did a lot for seniors. He got them to build little almost cottages on the sand where they could play cards, and he would go before the city council and get all the seniors signed petitions, and then he would organize it.
So you came from a family of activists, didn't you?
I guess so. I guess so.
You never thought about it that way, did you? Well, let's get down to when and where you were born and what was your original surname.
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida in 1918, and my surname is Weiselman. And my mother and father immigrated from Russia, the Ukraine, just before the First World War. And they moved to Florida when my mother had a skin disease, and the doctor told my father that he should take her out of Chicago, where they met and got married, and go to a climate where there was ocean, salt water, and a lot of sunshine. So he got on a train, and he was an adventurer, never was afraid of what could come next, and ended up in Florida.
Now, when were your mom and dad born, and what were their names?
My father was Abe, and he was born about 1893, I believe, and my mother about 1897, and her name was Elsie, but we always called her Ella. Everyone called her Ella. Of course, I called her Mom. Mama, I called her Mama.
And your mom's last name, original last name?
Was Berger. Yeah.
Okay. And Dad?
She came from a little shtetl near Kiev, and my father came from another little shtetl near Kiev, but they never met in Russia. They met in Chicago.
What language did they speak at home? Yiddish?
Russian and Yiddish, and they wanted very much to learn English, so they tried to speak English with us, and we learned a little Yiddish and a little Russian, but And I also went to school and learned a little Yiddish, and it's a fun language. I still love some of the idioms.
They have some great sayings too, don't they?
Yes.
Now, how many brothers and sisters were there?
I had a wonderful sister, a year younger than me, and her name is Sophie, and she's still been the most wonderful sister anyone could have. And I had two brothers. I've lost my brothers in the last few years, which was very sad because they were in their only 80 and 82 when they died. And my sister and I are 90 and 91, and it's very hard to be without them.
And their names were?
The eldest of my brothers was Irving, and the youngest was Hal.
Very good. Now, you said your family went down to Florida to try to get your mom's psoriasis better. Mm-hmm. What experience did you have in Florida as a child that influenced the rest of your life?
Well, there were two experiences, one in dance and one, my fear of and knowledge that there was lynching going on of black people in Florida. I was so appalled and shocked and horrified that I made a vow to myself, even as a child, I think I only must have been around 9 or 10, that I would, all my life, do whatever I could so that there would be no more lynchings. And then for dance, I was once crossing a stream and I fell in the water, walking on the rocks, and my father said, "You're clumsy." And I said to myself, I better go to dancing school, and so I will never be clumsy again. And I went to dancing school, and I found out that I didn't like to do exactly what everyone else was doing. I liked to make up my own dances. So that's when I started creating dance and loving dance.
And you did belly dancing, too.
Well, that was very late. That's after I moved to Leisure World.
Show us a few of your movements.
Oh dear.
Nice. Da, 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 da,
And I also did Spanish dancing with castanets.
Woohoo!
I studied with Carmelita Mamrachi in L.A. and Inesita, and I loved it.
That's good. And you were involved with Eva Desca Garnett, too, one of the Laguna Woods Village residents.
Yes, well, I met Eva in Los Angeles and started studying dancing with her, creative dance and belly dancing. And then when she moved to Laguna, to Leisure World, and then I moved to Laguna, Leisure World, I begged her to teach a creative dance class. She had just been teaching chair exercises. And so she started a creative dance class, and then she started a belly dance class, and I was in heaven.
And then Sue Nadell, also another professional dancer, is in the village, and she and Eva have, of course, been great buddies. And you know Sue.
I met Sue when she first moved from New York to Los Angeles and started teaching in a little dance studio that I helped organize in Hollywood, where my children went and studied dance with Sue, and I studied with one of the other teachers.
So your children studied with Sue?
Oh, yes.
Oh, how wonderful. Okay. When did you first get married, and what was your husband's name?
My husband was Dr. Max Sherman, and this was in 1938 in San Francisco. He was going to, he had just finished UC Berkeley Medical School and was interning, and I had just finished my freshman year at UCLA, and I moved up to Berkeley to be close to him, and we got married in San Francisco.
Now, when he was a resident at Bellevue in New York City, and you tried to find a school near Bellevue. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, he after California, he had to go to different state hospitals to as an intern and be a resident in different psychiatric wards. He wanted to specialize in psychiatry. And then he was accepted at Bellevue for the residence program. And we didn't have much money, and I wanted to continue my college education, which I had at different states where he went to state hospitals. So I'd gone to 4 different colleges, and this would be the 5th, and I tried to get into Hunter College, which was the closest to Bellevue, and they said only residents of New York City could enter, and I asked them, I just got an inspiration, and I said, could I see your charter? And I found a paragraph in the charter that said that students of exceptional ability could enter without necessarily being a resident. And so I was accepted, and I was the first psychology major to graduate from Hunter College, and I graduated cum laude.
Very nice, very, very nice.
And I love New York City because I could take dance classes with the great dancers.
And what was your relationship to all the greats at the time, the Martha Grahams and the others?
Well, I didn't know Martha and Doris Humphrey, Martha Graham or Doris Humphrey, but incidentally, Eva was dancing with the Doris Humphrey modern dance group. She was the assistant director to Doris Humphrey, and I must have seen her on the stage in New York in '39 when I lived there and didn't know it, because I have a picture of her when she danced with Humphrey.
Wow. Things have come full circle,
Yeah.
haven't they? Tell us about your children.
Well, my daughter was born in 1941 in Worcester, Massachusetts, where my husband was a resident at the Worcester State Hospital. And my son was born in Los Angeles because my husband was drafted for the Second World War, and we had to move back to Los Angeles. And he was stationed at Santa Ana Air Base in the hospital there. And that's where my son was born in 1942, Danny.
And your daughter's name is?
Linda.
So she's Linda Sherman.
Right.
And Danny Sherman.
Right.
Very good. Tell me a little bit about them.
Well, both Linda and Danny were very creative in the arts. Linda sang, played the guitar and the piano, and she painted and did ceramics, and sort of was an organizer. When she went to Hollywood High, she organized an international club and a folk song club. So, and she liked skiing, and my son loved jazz, and he played the saxophone, and he wrote poetry, and he loved to act. And we used to go to the Idlewild School of Music and Art, and he was in the junior players and was very often the lead, and he loved acting and really had thought of becoming an actor, but he was torn between becoming a doctor like his father or an actor, and he finally decided that he would rather be a doctor, but he died at 17 of leukemia, and I was just, the only way I could cope with it was to know that I was lucky to have him as long as I had, and that he had lived a very full life for 17 years.
Yeah, that was very tragic. You talked about music in both your children's lives. Getting back to your activism, music has played a very, very important part in various social movements through history. Tell me a little bit about your experiences with the music in your activism.
Well, it really was something that I always liked, you know, dance and music. And then fairly recently, a few years ago, at the Orange County Performing Arts Center, I saw this marvelous musical called Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk. And it was all wonderful black young people dancing, tap dancing, and it gave the history of the contribution of blacks to the music of America. And it showed how when they came from Africa, they couldn't bring their drums, so they would take the old discarded pots of their masters and use them as drums. And they invented tap dancing as a way of drumming and communicating. And so they contributed to our, really the most indigenous, I guess, I don't know, music of America, and influenced Gershwin and Bernstein, and I don't think people realize how much they did contribute to the music in America.
Yes. Tell us about your activism. In the 1950s, you were involved. Tell us how you got started in your involvement.
Well, I first got started in high school.
Oh, yes.
On Armistice Day in '35, when I was at Roosevelt High in Boyle Heights, what happened was that the whole commemoration of Armistice Day was to honor veterans and the soldiers and the Great War. And I felt the emphasis should be on an end to war and peace. So we organized a little demonstration with banners for peace and ending war. And the school administration was so upset that they called the fire department, and who came with hoses and were going to hose us down. So we had to disband. But we were really shocked then. And that was my first activism. And then after we moved back to Los Angeles, and after I had my children, and I was active in Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. My children, I was a brownie leader and a den mother for Cub Scouts. There was a problem in Sacramento that we were worried about. The state legislature wanted to pass a bill requiring a loyalty oath for anyone with a license, including doctors and lawyers and accountants, and they had already had a loyalty oath for teachers, which we felt was an infringement of free speech and the Constitution. So we organized a group of doctors' wives and lawyers' wives, and we were instrumental in the defeat of that legislation. And so the group of us decided to form a permanent organization, and it was the Women for Legislative Action. And we studied legislation, and we lobbied in Sacramento, and we went to Washington, and we went to the City Council and the Board of Supervisors anyway, and we wrote letters, and it was a wonderful organization. And I was program chairman.
You were program chair there, and in Concerned Citizens, you have been a very effective program chair. So the cycle continues.
Well, it was easy for me to become a program chairman for Concerned Citizens because I had done it for so long with Women for Legislative Action.
Yes. Tell us about your involvement in the black community.
Well, the first time I started community organizing was in Worcester, Massachusetts. I worked with the National Negro Congress, and I tried to help the black community in Worcester, Massachusetts to get more rights that they deserved and get them to join the National Negro Congress. And I did that until I had to stop when I had my daughter, when my daughter was born.
Who were some of the people you worked with, and in what capacity?
Well, I worked with Arnez Bataket, a black leader in South Los Angeles, and I was active before the Watts riot in the black community organizing and speaking before legislative committees about certain legislation that was being, certain civil rights legislation that was being offered. And I was there at a legislative hearing the day before the Watts riot, and it was at the park where by that street where the Watts riot started, when a woman was arrested with her stepbrother and mother for defending her. They were accusing her of drunk driving, and they were all arrested, and they were taken to jail, and it caused a whole stir in the community, and crowds just gathered around them and tried to stop the police. Anyway, it erupted into the Watts riot. And afterwards, after the riots, I felt I wanted to go back into the community to see what was happening. And I went, and I had no problem as a white woman going back. They knew me. And also when I was with Women for Legislative Action, I organized a black chapter in South LA. And then when in 1967, when I was very active in the anti-Vietnam War peace movement, and we were demonstrating against the war, and then the '67 riots broke out all over Detroit and other cities. And I just felt that here we were fighting to end the war in Vietnam, and here we had another war going on right in America. So I felt we should reach out to the black community and see if we couldn't work together. And so we had a meeting with some representatives of different organizations, including the Black Panthers. And as we sat around the table, I noticed that none of the black people were talking, and we were just talking about our plans and so on. And finally, I said, what can we do to help you in your struggle? And then they all started talking about what they needed, how they needed help, because they didn't have much money. They needed a mimeograph machine. They needed this. They needed that. So we did bridge a gap then.
Now tell us about the voting rights movement and how that all developed in the United States in the 50s and 60s, and how you were involved. Well,
actually, I wasn't specifically involved in the voting rights movement, but I was involved in the civil rights movement. I worked, actually, when in the black community organizing for the Poor People's Campaign, the march in Washington in 1968, which I went to, and out of which there was more legislation passed. But earlier than that, in '67, in South Carolina at a bowling alley which was segregated, there was a protest, and the police shot and killed 3 black students who were protesting segregation. And I organized a demonstration in front of the Los Angeles City Hall with then City Councilman Tom Bradley, who later became the mayor. And I just felt that there wasn't enough being done to recognize the problems and struggles and humiliation of black people.
Yes. You've done a lot to make our society better, and we definitely appreciate that. You were on the Peace Action Council. What was that all about?
Well, I represented Women for Legislative Action on the Peace Action Council, which was a coalition of organizations mainly to try and end the Vietnam War. But also I was involved in the beginning of Women's Strike for Peace. And that was in November 1st, in the early 70s, and I think 71. We organized a demonstration in Los Angeles to coincide with the demonstrations in Washington, D.C. and all over the world, all over America, 50,000 women in different cities in America protested the war in Vietnam, and they called themselves, Bella Abzug was one of the organizers, and Dagmar Wilson in Washington, D.C. And I represented Women's Strike for Peace at a world conference in Stockholm and in Rome in 1966.
You love hats, and you wear them very nicely.
That's
and
true.
Usually they're colorful and big.
Oh, and Bella.
Yes,
Abzug.
Bella.
Well, Bella told me the story of why she's decided to wear hats. When she got out of law school, there were very few women lawyers, and she would go into a lawyer's office to have a conference with, say she was representing the defense, she was a defense attorney, and she had to go and meet with another attorney. And she would go into the office and tell the receptionist her name, and then she would wait and wait and wait for hours. And finally she went up to the receptionist and she said, how come you never called me? I saw other people going into the lawyer's office. She said, well, you know, you're only a clerk. And she says, no, I'm a lawyer. So finally she thought of wearing a hat and gloves and look very officious, and it helped. So that's how she started wearing a hat.
Is that why you wore hats?
No,
Oh, okay.
I mainly wore a hat to protect myself from the sun. I had one problem with skin cancer, and the doctor told me it was 50 years ago to wear a hat. And so I love them anyway, so I wear them every time I'm outside in the sun.
Well, they look lovely on you.
Thank you.
You have had insights just at the right moment, and it has changed people's thinking. And one of those occasions was when you got involved with Stamp Out Smog. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. My son suffered from the smog. He had red eyes and difficulty breathing when there was a smog attack in L.A. And the group of mothers got together whose children also suffered from smog, and we decided to do something. So we organized Stamp Out Smog, SOS, and we asked some scientists from Caltech College to come and explain to us what caused the smog. And we learned that it had a lot to do with carbon particles that were being emitted in oil refineries. And they suggested that we try and get oil refiners to lower emissions. And so we got a resolution introduced into the LA County Board of Supervisors, and we organized a contingent of about 100 women with their children, with babies and buggies, and the mothers wore gas masks. And we went to the downtown, to the Board of Supervisors, and the oil companies had sent about 300 oil company executives wearing black suits and carrying briefcases, and they had filled up the auditorium early, and we all were in the back of the room standing with our children. And one of the oil men executives got up and said, well, you know, smog is good because it brings tears to your eyes and cleans out your eyes. And we knew what it did to our children and their eyes. So I finally thought we should ask for, and we did ask for, and had a meeting with the 5 supervisors, at which time, as we discussed the resolution to lower emissions, one of the supervisors said, well, you know, profits are just as important as the health of the people. And I sort of was taken aback, and then I said, you know, I think the LA Times and Life and Time magazines would be very interested in that quote. And he realized what he had said, and he said, oh, Mrs. Sherman, we'll pass your resolution. And it's passed, and that was the first resolution in the United States to lower emissions. And also we formed a Clean Air Coalition, and I went to Washington and met with Senator Muskie, who was head of the Environmental and Energy Commission, and we got a Clean Air Act passed.
Wow. You have made a difference in our world. And you may underestimate the importance of what you've done, but I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Now, education was very important to your mom. Tell us about how she thought about education and all of you kids.
Gone to school because in Russia girls were just neglected. So my mother wanted all of her children to go to college. It was her dream. And since I was a good student in high school, she felt definitely I should go. And I really wanted to be a professional dancer. Immediately after high school, have to, study dance very seriously. And she felt I should go to college, so I just deferred to her. And in college at that time at UCLA, they did not have a dance major, but I took all the dance classes in the physical ed department, and I danced with the performing groups, and I studied dancing all my life, but I did finish college. I did get my BA, as I mentioned before.
Now Sophie how did your education and Sophie and your other sibling, how did that affect them?
Well, my mother was so intent on my going to college, and when I was in high school, we all did chores in the house, because there were four of us, 2 younger brothers. And my mother wouldn't let me do anything, any housework. She just made my sister do it. She said, I have to have all the time for study, because I'm going to go to college. And she knew that Sophie wasn't going to go to college. Poor Sophie had to do all the washing dishes, sweeping, et cetera, et cetera. So I always felt guilty about that.
How did Sophie feel?
She just was very nice about it. She just did it. She just accepted that's the way it was. She became a very successful businesswoman without a college education.
Yes. And she lives in Santa Barbara now?
She lives in Santa Barbara, and her hobby is stained glass windows, and she's been a wonderful sister. Wonderful.
That's great. Now tell us how you got married a second time. Tell us some of those details.
Well, after my son died, and also I didn't mention that my daughter developed a mental illness when she was about 19, but luckily, because of her interest in all the creative arts, she's had a full life with her painting and her music, and she's in a choir and performs, and she sings, leads folk singing with some adult daycare groups, and I'm really proud of her. Anyway, unhappily, unfortunately, my marriage with Max ended in a divorce, and it was a difficult time for me, but my family helped me, and then I met Clarence Ross through his sister, and I had met my first husband through his sister. So anyway, we met on a blind date that his sister had arranged, and he was in the printing business, so he helped me by printing flyers for my different organizations. Anyway, I remember he asked me after our first date to come to his house for a birthday party for his daughter, and I said, it was on a Sunday morning, he says, well, I'm going to be demonstrating in front of Reagan's house in the Pacific Palisades. I can't come. Anyway, but we became involved, and he wanted to get married right away. He had been divorced recently, and I said, I don't know if I believe in the institution of marriage anymore. So I said, but I'll live with you. It's accepted now. Young people do it all the time. So he wasn't happy about it. And I said, one day I'll marry you when I get over this fear signing a contract that doesn't mean anything. And so I did marry him 7 years later, and we lived together 13 years legally until he died in '92, and that's when I moved to Leisure World.
You had a very loving and happy and fun-filled relationship with Clarence, didn't you?
Oh yes. He after the printing business, he got with a partner, bought the old Technicolor studios in Hollywood, and managed the studio. He would rent it out for different shows like General Hospital and Soap, and even the Jackson 5 performed on the sound stages. And I used to watch them all. It was fun. It was a fun life with him.
That's great. How long did he live, and when did Clarence die?
As I said, he died in '92, and that's when I moved here. And I loved his children, especially his younger daughter, Jan. We've been very close.
How old was he when he died?
He was almost 90. I mean, almost 80.
Almost
My
80.
father was almost 90 when he died, and Clarence was almost 80 when he died.
Oh, your father was almost 90.
Yeah, he was 88 and a half.
And your mom was how old?
She was 70. She died of cancer.
Ah, so there's longevity in your family.
My grandmother, who lived to be 98.
Whoa!
And she lived alone in Venice Beach, and she used to sit on the bench in front of the Ocean Parkway there, and she would give out advice. People from all over. She was known as the wise woman of Venice, and I used to go for her advice too when I was a teenager. You know, I wouldn't go to my parents. I'd go to my Baba, we called her.
Yes, Baba.
So.
So she was a Weisselman giving out wise advice.
You're right.
Oh, that's wonderful. So she liked the ocean too, just like you do.
Oh yes, oh yes.
That's great. So today, what activities are you involved in today?
Well, I'm still active in Concerned Citizens, although I'm not program chairman anymore, and I belong to a book club, and I go to concerts and theater and to the beach.
To the beach. What would you say is your motto for life?
Well, I truly feel that we're brought on this earth to try and make it a better place, and also to live life to the fullest, enjoying literature and art and music and dance and nature, flowers and trees and family. That's what I think.
That's great. Well, I think we've all seen how Julia Ross has lived a life that's made a difference for all of us in our world, and Julia is truly a remarkable woman. Are there any other thoughts or feelings that you'd like to express as we finish up here to your family and friends?
Well, I'm grateful to have the opportunity of living in Laguna Woods Village, which has been wonderful for me, and I think I've been fortunate to have such a wonderful family and friends, and I appreciate what you and Carly are doing with this DVD of my life.
Good. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Julia, do you feel like you are an old woman?
No, I feel like I'm older, but I don't feel like a stereotyped old woman.
What's a stereotyped old woman in your mind?
Well, I always think of an old woman as someone who is bent over and weak and a little helpless. But since I'm not that way, I don't think of myself as an old woman. But I know I'm older, and I'm don't have as much energy as I used to have, and can't be as active as I used to be or want to be. But I have to face reality.
Now, about what age do you think you started to see a difference, a shift from older to old?
Well, I think when I turned 90, that was like, I felt there was a change. I just felt I didn't have as much energy and vitality, and that I had to be a little, I had to think ahead as to how active I could be, otherwise I would get exhausted. So I think it's facing the reality of a difference in energy.
I see. Folks in this community here at Laguna Woods Village in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, we're all thinking about what's going to happen to us when we get old. What could you say to them? What do you think would be some good advice for them?
Well, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think it's, as I said before, it's a natural process. And if you eat properly and exercise regularly and socialize and stimulate your mind and have friends and keep in touch with your family and try and think of some interesting things to do in your life. And also, I believe that it helps to try and make the world a better place. To me, that's one of my main goals.
You've done that all your life.
Most of my life.
Yeah. Now, having friends, having a strong social group, going out to cultural events, museums, those are things that you do regularly, aren't they?
Yes, I still do. Go to museums and theater and concerts and lectures. Not as much as I used to, but as much as I feel capable of doing with the condition that I'm in.
Right. Now, you've had some problems with fluctuating blood pressure and some other issues, but it was interesting on that 60 Minutes interview that they did on that brain study that UCI is conducting.
On 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, yeah. They said that in older people, they're finding that a little bit of few extra pounds and some fluctuating blood pressure isn't necessarily all that bad.
Yeah, well, as long as the blood pressure doesn't get too high or too low. But if it's within a certain number, then I think that's true.
But sometimes you don't go to things because you say your blood pressure is out of control.
If it's too high or too low, and I know what the numbers are to watch for.
So then you're proactive.
Well, I pay attention. Mm-hmm. That's what I should say.
Yeah. Now, what about when you start to feel like, oh boy, I think I'm getting dementia? Tell me about that event.
Well, yeah. I was getting absent-minded. I would go to the cupboard and reach for one object, and I would find myself walking away with another one. And I said, oh my God, I have to focus on what I'm doing. I don't automatically do the right thing anymore without focusing. And then I thought, am I getting dementia? The beginning of dementia? And then I read an article in the Globe that there was going to be a psychology professor speaking on how to prevent dementia. So I was very happy that it was just perfect timing. And I went to the lecture, and he said there were 4 things to do to prevent dementia. One was to watch your diet, exercise regularly, socialize, and stimulate your mind. And I do all of those 4 things, so I said, I guess I'm not going to get dementia. So I stopped worrying.
Yeah.
But I realized that I had to focus more on ordinary things that I automatically used to feel I would do right.
Good genes help too, don't they?
Well, I really don't know enough about that.
Well, what ages were your parents and your brothers and sisters and all that when they died?
Well, my mother was 70 and died of cancer, and my father was 88 and died of a heart attack. And one of my brothers died at 80 of a failed kidney, even though he had had a transplant. And my other brother died of prostate cancer, and he had had diabetes 1, so he'd had a difficult life, but
you
a
and your
productive
sister,
life.
yeah, but you and your sister are still going.
Yeah,
How old is she?
I'm 95, and she's going to be, and she's 90. She was just 94.
Wow. And you've had good health care. I mean, you know, we people here live a rather privileged life when it comes to being adequately cared for all of our lives. You've always had good health care, haven't you? And,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was married to a doctor for the first 25 years of my married life. And so I've always had good health care, and my family as well, my children, and so on.
That's good. What do you think about when you die? What happens? What do you have any scary stories about that, or what's your feeling about death?
Well, I think we all know that death is a natural event, that it happens to all of us. And it's tragic when it happens by an accident or a serious illness of a young person, or a lot of suffering. But death is inevitable. And of course, I know that, and I know that it will come someday, and I'm preparing in certain ways. I'm trying to get my files and legal papers in order, and starting to give away some of my books because I have so many, and I have some artwork, and I keep asking my nieces and nephews what would they like after I'm gone, and they don't want to even think about it. They don't want to even think about my being gone, so I haven't had any help from them, which has made it hard for me.
Do you think there's life after life?
No, I don't believe in the hereafter, and I happen to be an atheist, so I don't believe in God or the hereafter. I believe we're on this earth to do the best we can and try and make it a better place.
Your interest in life is contagious, and I think that's one of the reasons why you keep your vibrancy, your physical vibrancy and your mental awareness going. You just love life.
I love life, yes.
L'chaim.
I am to life, yes.